Ethan Cole left his office long after most lights in the city had gone dim. The glass tower stood quiet behind him, shining like a mirror that reflected everything except what he truly felt. His driver opened the back door, but Ethan waved that he would sit in front tonight. He said he needed air. The city hummed with soft traffic and blinking crosswalks. He loosened his tie but kept his face calm, the way he always did in front of a board, a camera, or a crowd. Inside, he felt the familiar weight of silence that waited for him at home. They rolled past a brick building that glowed with warm window light. Ethan knew this place. His company donated to the community center every year. He usually just signed the check, posed for a polite photo, and moved on. Tonight, for a reason he could not name, he told the driver to stop. "Just a minute," he said. It was cold enough for his breath to show when he stepped onto the sidewalk. From inside came the soft sound of children laughing and paper being cut. A poster on the door said, "Family night, all are welcome." He walked in without a plan. The lobby smelled like crayons, cocoa, and clean floors. Volunteers wore bright vests and carried boxes of glitter and glue sticks. Parents and grandparents stood in little groups, chatting. Some kids ran from table to table, proud to show their art. Ethan tucked his hands into his coat pockets and tried to look like any other neighbor, not a man whose face appeared on business magazines. He didn't want attention. He just wanted to feel something warm, something simple. Near the front desk, a little girl stood with a glittery poster almost as big as her. The words were written in neat, careful letters with a silver pen. "Dad's night," it said, with a small heart drawn in the corner. She looked up when she saw him. Her brown hair was tied in a ponytail that swung like a bell. She took a small step closer, a little brave and a little shy. Then she said in a clear, hopeful voice, "Can you be my daddy for one night?" Time stopped for Ethan. He had heard thousands of requests in his life: funding, approvals, meetings, partnerships, more, more, more. No request had ever struck him like this one. He looked at her face and felt the world tilt. The girl had two-toned eyes, one shade slightly lighter than the other. A tiny dimple rested on her left cheek when she smiled. He knew those details. He had carried them in his memory for years, stored away in a room he never opened. He thought of a name he had not said in a very long time, Myra. He lowered himself to the girl's height so they could see each other clearly. "Hi," he said softly, careful with his words. "My name is Ethan." "What's your name?" "Lily," she said, with that dimple again. "Nice to meet you, Lily," he said. He pointed to the poster. "What happens at Dad's night?" Lily explained with simple excitement. There would be a little dance, a silly quiz, and a craft where kids wrote a thank you note to the adult who came for them. She said some kids had their fathers, but others brought uncles, family friends, or mentors. "It's okay if it's not a real dad," she said. "We just want someone to cheer." He listened and felt something soften in his chest. "And when is Dad's night?" he asked. "Tomorrow," Lily said. "At my school." Her eyes shone, then dimmed just a little. "Sometimes Mom's friend comes. But she has a late shift this week." She held the poster closer to her chest. "It's okay if you can't. I just wanted to ask." Ethan's phone buzzed, as if it had waited for a weak moment. His calendar reminder flashed, board rehearsal, 6 to 9. The rehearsal was important. The board would meet the next day for a vote that could change the company's next year. 12 directors. 1 CEO. A very tight plan. He looked back at Lily. The weight of duty met the pull of kindness. He didn't want to promise and then disappear. That would be worse than saying no. "How about we get some hot cocoa first," he said gently. "Then you can tell me more." Lily nodded with quick joy. He bought 2 cocoa cups at the small counter and asked for extra marshmallows. They sat at a round table near a bulletin board full of paper hearts. "Do you like stories?" he asked. Lily said she loved them, especially about brave animals who get lost and then find their way back home. She said she drew unicorns because they looked like they weren't afraid. Ethan smiled, a small, real smile he did not use for cameras. "Unicorns are very brave," he agreed. He asked about her favorite class, her best friend, and the dance she would do at Dad's night. Lily stood up to show him one step, then laughed when she stepped on her own shoelace. He laughed too, and for a moment the world felt simple and bright. A woman hurried in through the front door, cheeks pink from the cold, hair tucked under a warm hat. She spotted Lily and rushed over. "I'm so sorry," she said, breathless. "I'm late, my shift ran over." She touched Lily's shoulder and looked at Ethan. "Thank you for watching her." "It was my pleasure," Ethan said, standing. "I'm Ethan." He did not add a last name. He did not need the extra weight it carried. "Emma," she replied, then turned to Lily. "Did you show him your poster?" Lily nodded. "I asked him," she said. "I was brave." Emma's eyes were kind but careful. She explained that the school allowed any caring adult who was cleared and listed to attend, not just fathers. It was meant to make children feel included. She said sometimes she found someone, sometimes not. She hated asking, but she would do anything to help Lily feel normal. "I understand," Ethan said, and he meant it. "What would I need to do, if I were to help?" Emma explained the simple steps. There was a quick background check the center could trigger, a visitor badge at the school, and a short list of rules. No photos. No gifts. Just be present. "It keeps things safe, and it keeps things simple," she said. He nodded. Simple sounded good. Safe sounded even better. His phone buzzed again. It was his assistant. "Confirming board rehearsal tomorrow evening," the text read. "Slides final by noon. Investors will dial in." Ethan looked at the text and felt a line pull tight inside him. He stepped a few paces away and stared at a corkboard covered with tiny photographs of people smiling at bake sales, sports days, and reading circles. He thought about the cold, perfect quiet of his penthouse. He thought about the voice that had asked him for something he could actually give. Not money. Not a contract. Just time. He returned to the table. "I can't promise tonight," he told Emma, keeping his tone honest. "But I want to see if I can make this work, in the right way." Emma studied him for a second, like someone measuring not just words but weather. "Thank you," she said. "Even trying means a lot." Lily packed her markers into a small bag with stars on it. "The dance is easy," she said. "I can show you before we go home." Ethan set his cup down and stood. "Show me," he said. She took 2 careful steps, swung her arms, and giggled when the bag strap slipped. He followed, slow and unsure, but it was enough to make Lily clap. "You're good," she said. "I've had a very kind teacher," he replied. When it was time to leave, Ethan walked them to the door. The cold felt different now, sharp, yes, but fresh. A street vendor stood nearby with a table of knit gloves and bright hats. Ethan bought a small pair of mittens with a tiny stitched moon and handed them to Lily. "For the walk home," he said. Emma started to protest, then saw the price was small and the gift was practical. "Thank you," she said. "We'll bring them back if that's better." "Please keep them," he said. "No need to bring anything back." He meant the words more than she could know. At the corner, Emma ordered a ride on her phone. They stood quietly for a moment. City lights moved across car roofs like streams of color. "I'm sorry I asked a stranger for something so big," Lily said suddenly, as if the thought had been hiding behind her smile. "I just wanted to try." Ethan felt his throat tighten, but his voice stayed warm. "You were brave," he said. "And I'm glad you asked me." Her ride pulled up. She climbed inside and waved her mittened hand. "I hope you come," she said. "If you can." He nodded once. "If I can," he said. The car drove away. Ethan stayed on the sidewalk a minute longer than he needed to. He watched the tail lights fade and listened to the quiet that followed. It did not feel empty in the same way as before. In the front seat of his own car, he buckled in and looked out the window at the center's door. He thought of two-toned eyes and a left cheek dimple. He thought of the name he had locked away with so many others, a name that came back tonight like a soft, steady knock. Myra. He let the name sit in the space between one breath and the next. As they pulled into the main road, he texted his assistant a single line, "Can we move tomorrow's rehearsal earlier?" 3 dots blinked, then a reply, "It will be hard." "I'll try." Ethan stared at the glow of his phone, then set it face down. He leaned back and closed his eyes. His mind showed him 2 rooms. One was bright, full of handmade posters and giggles. The other was a boardroom with a long table, perfect slides, and a clock that never stopped. He had lived most of his life in the second room. Tonight, a door to the first had opened. When he reached his building, the doorman greeted him by name. The elevator rose in smooth silence, stopping at the top floor. The penthouse smelled faintly of lemon polish and nothing else. He walked through rooms that looked like magazine pages, beautiful and untouched. He set his keys on the counter and stood still. The city lay wide in the glass, 1,000 windows shining. He could see everything and nothing. He poured himself a glass of water and sat by the window. He replayed the small dance step Lily had shown him. He replayed her question. He replayed his answer and wished it had been braver. He lay on the couch instead of the bed, still in his shirt and socks, as if leaving his shoes by the door made him less alone. When sleep came, it was thin and restless. He dreamed of a hallway lined with paper lanterns and a little crown made of folded gold paper. He dreamed of glitter that stuck to his fingers and would not wash off. He woke before dawn, the city sky a pale gray. He closed his eyes again and saw 2-toned eyes and the left cheek dimple that belonged to a memory called Myra. He let himself say the name, very quietly, into the empty room. Then he opened his eyes and started to plan. The next day began before the sun rose. Ethan sat at the edge of his bed, tie still loose in his hand, mind not on his company's numbers but on Lily's small voice. "Can you be my daddy for one night?" Those words had followed him home, slipped into his dreams, and woken him before dawn. He brewed coffee but barely drank it. His assistant had already filled his calendar with meetings and the rehearsal for the board presentation. The slides were ready, the numbers strong. Everything in his business life was in order. Yet inside, Ethan felt unsettled. His heart kept pulling him back to the little community center, the cocoa cups, and Lily's hopeful smile. By mid-morning, he made a quiet decision. He called his assistant and said, "Move the rehearsal earlier. I need to be free by evening." There was silence on the line, then a careful question, "Is this urgent business, sir?" Ethan replied firmly, "Yes. It is." He didn't explain. Some things didn't fit in a report or a schedule. Later that day, he drove himself to Lily's school. The counselor, a kind woman with glasses, welcomed him warmly. "We know who you are, Mr. Cole," she said, "but here, you're just Ethan. If you want to attend Dad's night, all we need is a quick background check and your name on the visitor list." He nodded and filled out the forms. It felt strange, humbling even, to wait for clearance like any other guest. But he liked that. It reminded him that this was not about status, it was about presence. At lunch, he told his coup that the evening rehearsal would happen earlier. The coup frowned. "Investors are watching closely. Shifting things for personal reasons could look careless." Ethan looked him in the eye. Numbers will always matter, he said, but people matter more. The rehearsal will be fine. For once, he didn't argue or over-explain. He simply stated the truth. After school hours, Ethan drove back to the playground. He spotted Lily running around with two friends, her laughter light and clear. Emma sat on a bench, reading something on her phone. When she looked up and saw Ethan, her expression carried surprise and caution. "You came back," she said softly. "I wanted to," Ethan replied. "If you're comfortable, I'd like to practice with her. I want to be ready for Dad's night." Emma studied him for a moment, then nodded. "All right. But no promises from her, she's just a child." Lily ran over, hair flying, and jumped into the small dance step she had shown him the night before. She stepped on his shoe again, laughed, and clapped her hands. Ethan copied her moves, awkward but willing, and soon they were both laughing. For the first time in years, Ethan felt unguarded. When the practice ended, Emma handed Lily her backpack and told her to wait a moment by the swings. Emma then turned to Ethan. "Why are you really doing this? Men like you don't change schedules for school dances." Ethan didn't give the polished answer. He said the truth. "Because when she asked me, I realized how long it's been since anyone needed me for something that wasn't about money or business. And because, she reminds me of someone I once loved." Emma froze slightly, then reached for her necklace. It was a silver locket, small and simple. Ethan's eyes widened. He remembered it. Years ago, he had designed that locket himself, had it crafted, and given it to Myra, the woman who had once held his heart. He whispered, "Where did you get that?" Emma hesitated, eyes searching his face. "It was a gift, a long time ago." The playground noise seemed to fade. Ethan's chest tightened. Could Emma be Myra? Could Lily be? His mind spun, but he said nothing more. He didn't want to scare her away. Instead, he bent down to Lily. "You're a great teacher," he said warmly. "Tomorrow, I'll be there to cheer you on." Her eyes lit up, and her little hand reached for his. "Promise." He looked into her two-toned eyes, saw the dimple when she smiled, and said quietly, "Promise." That night, Ethan sat in his office at home, slides open on the big screen. He rehearsed the numbers, but his thoughts drifted. He could face a room of investors without fear, but tomorrow he would stand in a school gym with a paper crown on his head, cheering for a child who might be more than he ever imagined. And for the first time in years, that thought didn't scare him, it gave him hope. The next evening arrived faster than Ethan expected. All day at the office, he had pushed through tasks with the efficiency of a machine. Numbers, reports, signatures, everything was in place. Yet in his mind, he wasn't in the boardroom. He was in a school gym decorated with paper lanterns, hearing children laugh and seeing Lily's eager eyes. By the time his car pulled into the neighborhood, Ethan noticed something unusual. His chest felt tight, but not from stress. It was a nervous excitement, the kind he hadn't felt in years. He straightened his jacket in the mirror but quickly reminded himself, tonight wasn't about a sharp suit or polished lines. It was about presence. The school gym was alive with color. Banners painted with Family Champions Night hung from the walls. Paper crowns sat on tables, waiting for children to decorate. Parents, grandparents, uncles, and neighbors filled the bleachers, chatting warmly. Ethan stood at the doorway for a moment, his tall frame slightly awkward, unsure of where he fit. Then Lily spotted him. She ran across the gym floor, crown slipping from her head, and shouted, "You came." Her joy was so bright that heads turned. For once, Ethan didn't care who was watching. He bent down, caught her in his arms, and said, "Of course I came. I promised." Emma walked behind, slower, her eyes cautious. She wore a simple sweater and jeans, but there was a quiet dignity about her. Around her neck hung the silver locket. Ethan's eyes flickered to it, then back to her face. For a second, time seemed to fold, and he was no longer in a school gym but back in a memory, young, hopeful, standing with Myra. When the activities began, Ethan tried to focus on Lily. They made a small thank you card together, her handwriting uneven but full of charm. She drew a unicorn with glitter and wrote, "Thank you for coming to be my champion." Ethan carefully wrote under it, "Thank you for inviting me." His handwriting, usually stiff for contracts, looked softer tonight. Then came the dance. The music started light, playful tunes. Children pulled their guests onto the floor. Lily grabbed Ethan's hand and showed him the step she had practiced. He moved stiffly at first, then relaxed when she left. Soon, they were twirling, clumsy but happy. Cameras flashed around the room as other parents captured moments. Ethan tried to stay in the background, but one parent recognized him. "Isn't that Ethan Cole?" "The CEO," someone whispered. A phone lifted, a picture snapped. Another person murmured, "With a little girl? Is that his daughter?" Ethan caught Emma's worried glance. Her face turned pale. She knew what would happen if that photo spread. Attention, questions, gossip. All the things she had worked years to avoid. After the dance, Ethan stepped aside with Emma near the corner of the gym. "Emma," he said softly, "that locket, did I give it to you?" She looked down, fingers brushing the silver. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then finally, her voice came, low but steady. "Yes. You did. Years ago. Back when I was Myra." Ethan's heart stopped. The name he had carried in silence, the face he had dreamed of, the woman he thought he had lost forever, she was here, standing before him. And Lily, with her two-toned eyes and her dimple, stood only a few feet away. He struggled for words. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" Emma's eyes filled with a storm of emotions. "Because your world was too big. Back then, you were chasing success, cameras followed you everywhere, and I was scared. I wanted peace. When I found out I was expecting, I knew I couldn't raise a child in that spotlight. So I left. I changed my name. I built a life for Lily away from the noise." Ethan's throat tightened. He thought of the empty penthouse, the countless nights of silence, the way he had buried himself in work while believing he had everything. In truth, he had been missing everything that mattered. "I never stopped thinking of you," he admitted. "Or wondering what might have been." Emma shook her head slightly. "And I never stopped protecting her. That was my choice. I don't regret it. But now," she glanced toward Lily, who was showing her unicorn card to friends. "Now you're here. And she's already attached." Her words carried a weight. Ethan understood. This wasn't about claiming or demanding. It was about responsibility and care. "I don't want to disrupt her world," he said gently. "I just want to be part of it if you'll let me." Emma looked at him with guarded eyes. "Then start small. Be here for tonight. Don't make promises you can't keep." The evening ended with applause as each child stood with their champion. Lily clapped louder than anyone, holding Ethan's hand with pride. For her, it was a perfect night. For Ethan, it was the beginning of a truth he had never imagined. But outside the gym, his phone buzzed. The photo was already online. Caption: "Billionaire CEO at school event with mystery child, who is she?" His PR team was calling. His crew had texted, "We need to address this immediately." Ethan silenced the phone. Emma saw the look on his face and whispered, "I can't let this hurt her." He nodded slowly. "Then let me protect her," he said. For the first time in years, Ethan wasn't thinking about investors or numbers. He was thinking about Lily and about the second chance standing right in front of him. The next morning began with headlines. Ethan woke up to find his name trending, not because of a $1 billion deal, but because of one picture, him holding Lily's hand at Family Champions Night. The photo was on every major business site. The captions were all the same: CEO at school event with mystery child. Some speculated she was his daughter. Others guessed about a secret family. His phone buzzed endlessly, emails poured in, and his coup had left 3 urgent voicemails before breakfast. Ethan sat at his kitchen table, coffee untouched, staring at the silver glow of the locket in his mind. Last night, Emma once Myra had told him the truth. He was Lily's father. The reality still shook him. The world might see gossip and scandal, but for Ethan, it wasn't about reputation anymore. It was about a little girl who had asked him for something simple: to show up. At the office, the board was restless. When Ethan walked into the sleek glass conference room, he felt the eyes on him not just as a CEO, but as a man suddenly humanized in the public's eye. The chairman cleared his throat. "Ethan, we need to address the rumors. Investors are unsettled. Stability is everything." Ethan, calm but firm, replied, "Stability isn't about hiding the truth. It's about standing by your values." The room went silent. This was not the Ethan Cole they were used to, the one who spoke only in percentages and forecasts. He continued, "My personal life is mine. What matters for this company is that we continue to grow responsibly, treat our employees well, and respect the communities we serve. If we can't handle a photo of me at a school event, then we're building on the wrong foundation." Some frowned. Some leaned back in surprise. His coup whispered, "You're risking credibility." Ethan shook his head. "No. I'm restoring it." That afternoon, Ethan drove not to a tower or an investor lunch but back to the neighborhood where Emma and Lily lived. Emma opened the door slowly, her face tight with worry. "Do you know what's happening online?" she asked. "Yes," Ethan said simply. "And I told my board not to respond." Emma's eyes widened. "Not respond? They'll keep guessing, keep spinning stories." "I know," Ethan admitted. "But silence protects Lily. If we say nothing, the noise fades. If we confirm, her life changes overnight." Emma studied him. She had expected him to put business first, to care about his image. But here he was, standing on her porch, choosing her daughter's safety above his own reputation. For the first time, her guarded heart softened a little. Inside, Lily was coloring at the table. She looked up, beamed, and said, "You came again." Ethan smiled, sat down beside her, and asked about her drawing. She explained every detail with excitement. He listened like it was the most important presentation he had ever heard. When Lily went to her room to fetch more crayons, Emma sat across from him. "What are you planning, Ethan?" she asked, her tone cautious. He answered carefully. "I want to be in her life. Not as a headline. Not as a visitor who shows up once. But as someone steady. I don't want to take her away from you. I want to share the responsibility." Emma's hands tightened around her mug. "Do you know what you're asking?" She's 7. Her world is small and safe. If you step in, you can't step back out. That would break her. "I know," Ethan said quietly. "That's why I'm not rushing. We can start small. School pickups, weekend pancakes, bedtime stories if you're comfortable. We go at her pace. At your pace. No cameras. No announcements." Emma searched his face for signs of selfishness, of ego, of the man she once knew who had chosen ambition over love. But this Ethan looked different. He looked tired, humbled, yet determined. "All right," she said finally. "We'll take it slow. But if you hurt her, Ethan, I won't forgive you. I won't, he promised. To prove his intent, Ethan acted quickly in a way only he could. The following week, his company quietly announced a new initiative: every employee with children would receive flexible hours and paid time for family events. It wasn't tied to his story, he made sure of that. He simply told HR, no child should ever feel left out because their parent couldn't make it. Word spread within the company. Employees whispered that maybe the CEO had changed. That maybe he understood what family meant after all. One evening, Ethan sat with Emma and Lily at their kitchen table. They had ordered simple takeout, no chefs, no silver cutlery, just noodles in paper boxes. Lily giggled as she tried to use chopsticks, sauce dripping on her shirt. Emma laughed too, shaking her head. Ethan found himself laughing along, not the polite laugh he gave investors, but a real one that shook his shoulders. Later, when Lily was in bed, Emma brought out a sealed envelope. She placed it on the table between them. It's the test, she said quietly. I thought it was fair, we know for certain. Ethan's heart pounded. He touched the envelope but didn't open it right away. Whatever this says, he whispered, I'm here. Emma nodded slowly. For the first time in years, her eyes softened when they met his. The envelope sat between them like a bridge, fragile, waiting, filled with the truth that would shape all their futures. And as the night grew quiet, Ethan realized something. For years, he had measured life in quarters, in profits, in milestones. Now he measured it in something much smaller, yet infinitely greater: the trust of one child, and the hope of one woman who once knew him as Myra's Ethan, not the world's CEO. Ethan sat at the table, the sealed envelope still between him and Emma. His fingers rested on it, but he didn't rush. For years, he had rushed everything: meetings, deals, even relationships. Tonight, for the first time, he let the silence sit. The hum of the refrigerator filled the kitchen, and from Lily's room came the faint sound of her humming before sleep. Emma leaned back in her chair, her arms crossed, protective yet uncertain. Do you want to open it? She asked. Ethan looked at her, his voice low. Only if you want to. I already know what my heart says. That little girl feels like mine. Paper won't change that. Emma's eyes softened. For all her guardedness, she couldn't ignore the sincerity in his tone. She reached forward and tore the envelope open carefully, pulling out the folded paper inside. Her eyes scanned the lines. For a moment, her face was unreadable. Then she slid the paper across the table. It's confirmed, she whispered. Ethan read it once, twice. His vision blurred, not from disbelief but from the overwhelming wave of emotion that struck him. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. For the first time in years, he felt grounded, not by success or wealth, but by something real. She's mine, he said softly, almost to himself. She's really mine. Emma looked at him steadily. Yes. But remember, she's mine too. I raised her. I carried her through nights you didn't see. You don't get to step in as if those years never happened. Ethan nodded quickly. I would never erase that. You gave her everything. I want to be there now. For both of you. The next morning, Ethan woke earlier than usual. But instead of putting on a suit and heading into the city, he drove to Emma's house. Lily stood at the door with her backpack, eyes wide with delight. You came to take me to school? She asked. If your mom says it's all right, Ethan replied. Emma gave a small nod, still cautious but less resistant. The walk to school was short, but to Ethan, it felt like a new world. Lily chatted the whole way about her favorite teacher, about a spelling test, about a classmate who always traded her the best stickers. Ethan listened, smiling at her every word. He carried her bag when it got heavy and tied her shoelace when it came undone. He realized then that it wasn't grand gestures that mattered. It was these small things, the ones he had never done for anyone before. At work, whispers still circled. The board wanted answers. Investors wanted clarity. The coup kept pressing him for a press release. But Ethan made a bold choice. He called for a company-wide meeting. Thousands of employees tuned in virtually. He stood on the stage in the auditorium, no slides, no graphs. Just himself. This company has always measured success in numbers, he began. But what I've learned recently is that success also lives in the small moments. In showing up for people who matter. So today, we're changing some things. Flexible hours for parents and caregivers. Paid leave for school events. And one day every year we will call Family Champion Day, where every employee can spend a whole day celebrating with their loved ones. The employees were stunned. The room filled with applause. For once, Ethan's leadership came not from charts but from heart. After the meeting, his assistant whispered, "The investors may not like this." Ethan replied firmly, "Then they're not the kind of investors we need. We build for the long term. And family is long term." That evening, he returned to Emma's house. Lily was already in pajamas, bouncing with excitement. "Can you read me a story?" she asked, holding out a book with a unicorn on the cover. Ethan sat beside her, reading in a voice softer than anyone had ever heard from him in a boardroom. Halfway through, her head rested on his arm, eyes closed. By the time he reached the last page, she was asleep. Ethan tucked the blanket around her and stood quietly by the door. Emma watched him, her expression unreadable. Then she whispered, "She's never fallen asleep that quickly for anyone but me." Ethan smiled faintly. "She feels safe." Emma hesitated before speaking again. "You're proving me wrong, Ethan. But I need to see this last." "I understand," he said. "I'll keep showing up. Not with words, but with actions." Weeks turned into months. Ethan's life changed in ways he never thought possible. His calendar now had blocks not just for board meetings but for Lily's art shows, her school concerts, even pancake Sundays. His penthouse, once silent and cold, now had a drawer with crayons, a cupboard with cereal, and laughter that echoed against the glass walls. And through it all, Emma began to trust him again, not because of what he said, but because of what he did. He didn't push. He didn't demand. He simply showed up, steady and patient. One evening, they all sat on the couch together, Lily asleep with her head on Ethan's lap. Emma looked at him quietly and said, "You know, when she asked you that night, 'Can you be my daddy for one night?' I thought you'd smile politely and walk away. I never imagined you'd still be here." Ethan looked down at Lily, then back at Emma. "Neither did I," he admitted. "But sometimes one night is all it takes to change the rest of your life." The room grew quiet, but it wasn't an empty silence anymore. It was the kind that carried warmth, promise, and the gentle rhythm of a future being built, not rushed. For years, Ethan had measured his life in quarters, in contracts, in headlines. But now, he measured it in something else: bedtime stories, small hands in his, and the quiet knowledge that he was no longer just a